You are listening to TMBDOS. They must be destroyed on sight. Discussions of an adult nature, adult language, and spoilers for the films discussed are most likely. Still on board? Come on in. Enjoy your stay.
They must be destroyed on sight.
Okay, we're back. It's episode 120 of They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. I'm your host, Lee. I'm sorry to intrude, but you're molesting this young lady, Russell. And I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel. You're brainwashing her with your beard, Harper. And I'm pretty sure you saw that line coming a mile away.
I knew there was going to be some kind of beard joke. There are so many. I don't think they quite said face hugger, but lots of beard references in that movie. So
yeah, and the movies we are going to be talking about, we're getting back into our sex comedy series. You know how long it's been since we've done our sex comedy series, Daniel?
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
We missed it last year,
mm-hmm.
And one of these movies I've been hanging on to since last year. So
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at 1963's Beach Party, and we're going to be looking at 1983's Joysticks, two movies that probably couldn't be more dynamically different in a lot of ways, but
and yet very similar in others. Yeah. I was surprised at how similar they were in structurally in terms of what they do. We'll get into that.
Mm-hmm. We do have some a little bit of housekeeping to get through here first. First thing I'm going to mention, I recently did a appearance on Cinema Psyops, one of their latest episodes, so go search them out. I'll put the link to the actual episode in the show notes, but talked about Night Train to Terror, which might be one of the worst movies ever made. Honestly, even talking about that movie was probably a crime against podcasting, and I apologize well beforehand. Purely my fault, because even though he put it on the list, Court Psyops put it on the list of movies to pick from, I'm the guy who picked it. So
as far as crime against podcasting goes, I feel like that's what we do every time we record. So nothing unusual for us.
I'm just afraid that we're like slowly killing other people's podcasts because BB and BC are gone now. So I'm almost expecting, like, I've done stints on Cinema Beef and Podcast Under the Stairs and now Cinema Psyops, all in Legion podcast network. I'm kind of worried I might end up killing off all the podcasts in that network if I'm going like this.
I think the key is if I show up and do a guest spot, then that's the real death knell.
It must be us together. That's what it is.
No, that's the thing. So any podcast you and I guest on together.
You were just a guest on the other podcast I do with James Murphy, City of the Dead. So we might have just killed that podcast.
Yeah, well, you're about done with Amicus films, so at least that would be a good spot for it.
Yeah. Hopefully, if James gets that edited and uploaded soon, I'll include the link to that in the show notes as well. But yes. That was a longer episode than usual for us because we had Daniel on there, and we were talking about 3 films in that one. So The Land That Time Forgot, At the Earth's Core, and The People That Time Forgot. The last 3 Amicus films, officially.
And I will refrain from commenting on those until so people will go listen to that episode.
So we'll move on now. We do have a few comments. I put it out there on the Facebook page. They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook. The best way to get in contact with us if they wanted to comment on the 2 movies we're doing. And everyone basically left just like very brief comments. Court Psyops queried, "Would you care to dance with me?" And he's talking about Night Train to Terror, and he's being a very bad boy doing that. He keeps bringing up trauma, and you got to stop it, Court, or we're just going to kick you off the Facebook group.
Only if we can dance Vidiot style.
Cameron Sullivan says Joe Don Mitchell Baker. And, I've never seen Mitchell, although that is one of Joe Don Baker's famous movies. I usually remember him as Buford Pusser in Walking Tall, right? Jay Deering says totally awesome video games. Gary Hill says Vidiot. And Jeff Williams says Von Zipper. So names.
They're all just exclamatory ejaculations about the two films that we're discussing. No one has any substantive comment. That's kind of the approach I'm going to take in this podcast episode as well. I'm just going to declaim things that happen in the film and not actually comment on them. So I hope you're ready for that, Lee.
All right. You're probably just going to say Dorothy Malone and then log off.
Dorothy Malone, beard, surfing. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And we have a comment on one of our YouTube videos. And this is from, I had to translate this because it was in Cyrillic. So I had to translate it to English.
Sure.
The name, anyway. And the name is Connecting to Media Network. Hello, Lee Russell. Have you ever faced a situation where you shoot a good video, spend tons of your time editing, put your heart into it, but your masterpiece does not gain any views? The point is that in order to get a large number of views and to become popular, a fresh video needs a good start with support of several thousand views. This is exactly what we suggest. Online service Viboom provides an opportunity to place your video on hundreds of sites in a couple of clicks and fits your goal perfectly. Yeah,
that sounds legit. I think you should definitely try that. I'm sure that's just gonna shoot you right to the top.
This sounds like a long-time listener, like they really want to help.
Really concerned with your social media presence. I get that. Yeah. Well, it sounds like we sign up for that service, and then like the next, like in like 2 or 3 weeks, we're gonna be like the new Serial. It's gonna be the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those podcasts that are highly successful on YouTube. But yeah, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll play some promos for some podcasts and a little bit of music, and we'll be back to talk about our 2 movies.
You ungodly warlock.
Hello, and welcome to Hello, This is the Doom Show. I'm Richard.
And I hate the burning.
Shh, who are you? Speak.
And I'm Brad.
She came in and said, "Buck, buck, buck," and he said, "Buck, buck, buck," and she said, "Buck, buck, buck, buck." That's what I got.
One is the Suspiria boner, the other's the Inferno boner. Anyway.
Which one is crying? The boner of tears.
Hello, This is the Doomed Show is available on hellodoomedshow.podomatic.com and doomedmoviethon.com.
Hello, this is the Doom Show. Richard, Brad, Jeffrey, Nafa. It's the Doom Show. Hello, this is the Doom Show. Slashers, giallo, and horror.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough.
How did you watch this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
You ungodly warlock.
Got an early start. We're gonna have a ball. We're gonna ride the surf. Yeah, that ain't all. Nothing is greater than the sand serpents out there. Unrack our boards just as soon as we get there.
stack 'em in the sand where they're breaking just right. Surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight. Chalking our boards while we're in school. Now it's waxing our boards at Balboa too. Nothing is greater than the sand surfing salt there. Unrack our boards just as soon as we get there. Stack 'em in the sand where they're breaking just right. Surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. The beach party tonight. Just right. We're gonna try to have yeah, beach party tonight. Nothing is greater than the sand surfing salt there. Unrack our boards just as soon as we get there. Stack 'em in the sand where they're breaking just right. Surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight. A vacation is here. A beach party tonight. Vacation is here. A beach party tonight. Vacation is here. A beach party tonight.
Okay, we're back, and the first movie we're going to be talking about is Beach Party from 1963.
Nothing is greater than the sand surfing out there. Yeah, we're surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight.
Beach Party, for the most uproariously uninhibited unveiling of today's pagan rites.
The Samoan puberty dance all over again.
The observing professor is Bob Cummings. Dorothy Malone is the professor's assistant, who can teach a few things herself.
After you write this book on sex,
Yes?
read it.
Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello, two youngsters in love you'll love.
You know, the only thing I've studied this semester is you.
Well, I hope you don't flunk.
Ava Six, a prime asset at any party. Harvey Lembeck, a motorcycle matador. Maury Amsterdam, host to hot doggers and beach bunnies.
Why not?
Keep a moving and a grooving. Don't stop now. Don't stop now.
Promise me anything but give me love.
Secret Service spot where only I know. The Grammys and the Hooters never go. Surfing, swinging, and surfing. Yeah, just surfing.
Treat him nicely. That's what you should do.
Vacation is here. Beach party tonight.
What do we hold, sinners?
Girls!
There's an irresistible surge of that urge to romantically merge. Ah, it's wild and wonderful when 10,000 kids beat on 5,000 beach blankets.
Hey, wall-to-wall girls.
Laughing, loving, living it up.
Vacation is here. Beach party tonight.
This is directed by William Asher, written by Lou Rusoff, and it's starring Bob Cummings as Professor Sutwell, Dorothy Malone as Marianne, Frankie Avalon as Frankie, Annette Funicello as Dolores, Maury Amsterdam as Cappy, Harvey Limbeck as Eric Von Zipper, Eva Six as Ava, John Ashley as Ken, Joni McCrae as Deadhead, Dick Dale and the Deltones as themselves. And the synopsis that I pulled from some random person on IMDb, anthropology professor Robert Orwell Sutwell and his secretary Mary Ann are studying the sex habits of teenagers. The surfing teens, led by Frankie and Dee Dee, don't have much sex, but they sing, battle the motorcycle rats and mice, led by Eric Von Zipper, and dance to Dick Dale and the Deltones. Look for Big Daddy's surprise cameo. And yeah, there you go. There's the movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't need to see it. You already know what's happening in this film. So therefore, you're done.
Yeah. But when's the first time you've seen this, Daniel?
I saw it for the podcast. I had, as kind of intimated in our last episode, as we were kind of going through our Dorothy Malone starring roles, I realized she was in this. She had a bit part. I kind of found it on Daily Motion, so this is available on Daily Motion. You can watch it in 2 parts. I thought, yeah, sure, that'll be a fun thing to do. So watched it for the podcast. I might have seen bits and pieces of it. A lot of these kind of things showed up on basic cable kind of back in the day. Although when I was growing up, I don't remember these. You'd see clips of them on shows about old movies more so than you'd see them actually like played anywhere. But I'm sure I saw like bits and pieces of some of these just around. But I've never seen this start to finish until actually this morning I watched it. So you, was this your first time?
No, I've definitely seen this entire film at one point when I was a lot younger. This definitely used to play all the time, like all these beach party movies. This is the first of...
There's 7 of these.
Yeah.
They're actually part of this series, yeah.
Yeah, some are just sort of loosely connected, and some are like direct sequels. Muscle Beach Party in 64, Bikini Beach in 64, Pajama Party in 64. Jesus, they were busy in 64. Holy fuck.
They got to cash in on the craze, man. That's the way you do it.
Beach Blanket Bingo in 65, Ski Party in 65, How to Stuff a Wild Bikini in 65, and The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini in 66. And then there's like the unofficial sort of spiritual sequel kind of parody from the 80s called Back to the Beach. And I used to see that on Turner Movies all the time.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Station, yeah. And that was back when I was a lot younger, like a teenager. And I was always convinced that Back to the Beach and all these other films had nudity and stuff that was just edited out. So I had always wanted to like rent these on VHS, just to see the nudity. And of course, no nudity. Yeah, these are kind of people. I think people think that these movies are fairly more innocent than they actually are. This movie does have a lot of innuendo in it that you probably wouldn't expect from this time.
It's definitely more assertive. Particularly, it doesn't actually show sex, but it definitely sort of simulates a little bit of, there's definitely some implication that sex is happening and some, sort of off-screen shenanigans that are a little bit more than what you would expect from a kind of family friendly kind of thing in the 60s.
Right.
I mean, there's a description where it's they're supposed to be very you got to keep in mind that at this point in 63 anything that was remotely pornographic was controlled by the mob, so you can't you couldn't make porn. And so they basically and they couldn't really even do like nudie movies because those were still, kind of risque. Those were only, so if you wanted to show it, kind of as a, something you could show, I mean, you just, you take out the nudity and you just kind of do like a bunch of people running around on a beach with bikinis on. And then you build a plot around that. And that's exactly what they've done here,
Yeah. This has got like it's got Annette Funicello. She had that sort of wholesome Walt Disney Mouseketeer Club.
She was one of the original Mouseketeers in the 50s, and she was even now kind of working for Disney. In fact, she was under contract for Disney even when they were doing at least the first few of these movies, and so they had like contractual obligations about what she was and wasn't allowed to do and that sort of thing. So she does get to be the kind of wholesome center of this movie, and then kind of a Lolita figure, which is actually called out in the text of the film, and there's a little 15-minute subplot that's not at all uncomfortable, where the scientist, the anthropologist, Dr. Sutwell, is kind of sort of dating this supposedly 16-year-old girl or whatever. Yeah, no, that's certainly it was kind of surprising to me, just the fact that they not only did it, but they call it out with the Lolita line. And Lolita was only 3 years earlier than this. I mean, that was a recent reference at this point. Of course, the Nabokov novels a few years earlier, but it's definitely, and that's the sort of thing to where it really is sort of playing with some ideas that are a little bit more risque than maybe, you kind of remember it being.
Yeah, it is, because these movies, I guess the initial sort of construction and design, like the whole concept of these is they wanted to do the Elvis movies, but they wanted a younger crowd, and they wanted to make them a little bit more risque. They wanted to make them actually entertaining for teenagers and young adults, so put a little bit more sexiness into it, a lot more bare flesh on display than you would typically see in an Elvis film. And there was another teen singer that they originally wanted to be in the Frankie Avalon role, Fabian, I believe it was, that they wanted to have star in this, but I guess
Fabian Forte.
Yeah, so, but he couldn't.
He looks like a James Dean type in his Wikipedia photo.
Mm-hmm. But then
like
they said
Buddy Holly, he's got that kind of
right. Anyway. But they settled with Avalon. Avalon was, he was sort of a recording star, but he was looking to get into films, and he went on to do a bunch of stuff for AIP other than just the Beach Party movies. Like, actually, he sort of dropped in and out of the series as it went on. Like, he'd come back for a movie and then leave for a movie. He kind of looks like, he's so young here, he almost kind of looks like Fred Savage to me. Like,
yeah. Yeah, no, these it's funny, like he's about 30 years old here, and Annette Funicello is 20. She looks very, very young despite being, well developed, etc. But they definitely kind of play her up as the innocent one, as the young one.
She looks like Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah, well, that's the Buffont. The Buffont, kind of everybody looks a little bit like Jackie Kennedy with that hairdo. What I was kind of surprised with is how interesting the some of the coding is, and some of the stuff with the anthropologist character, because it's not really. I mean, I was expecting it to just be the framing device, like, oh, this guy is just kind of creeping around and looking at girls. It's really his story and his secretary, played by Dorothy Malone. It's really their story. It's really their story, and then he's just kind of he gets involved in the kind of teenagers. I mean, the first 20 or 30 minutes of this is a little bit kind of hard to take, just in the sense of it's kind of the generic movie that I was kind of expecting, where it's a bunch of people in bikinis and like surfing and on some music and some, all right, where's the narrative here? what are we doing besides just watching this? I mean, it's fine if that's what you're going to do, but whatever. Once he and I'll pull up his name here. Bob Cummings is the actor's name. He's quite good in this. He was a TV actor from way back. He was kind of known for being that guy. He's kind of coming in and doing the anthropologist thing, and coding these kids is like explicitly racialized. I mean, there's a very complicated reading of this, to where he's essentially treating them like the African tribe in the savage jungle, etc., which is kind of a gag, but I mean, it goes throughout the film. I mean, it's a very overt kind of bit of narrative. And in fact, he's supposed to be this like world explorer kind of researcher, anthropologist who is gotten all these gifts from all over the world from various
he's got
tribes or whatever,
like a fireproof kimono from the Fire Chief of Tokyo.
Yes, from the Fire Chief of Tokyo, which I'm sure is an actual thing.
Yeah.
But he's got a secretary, Dorothy Malone. Mary Ann is the character's name. And Dorothy Malone just manages to be kind of the best thing in every movie she's in. Is that kind of the lesson we're learning here? She's amazing in this. She has maybe 20 lines. You get immediately that she's like the one who's clearly much wiser about what's actually going on than he is. She kind of twigs to him kind of being attracted to this girl in a way. From the beginning that she kind of takes his shit and she's kind of in love with him, but, also can't really talk about it. I mean, it's a sort of, I don't want to say subtle, but it's certainly, a fairly intricate kind of characterization that we get.
She's totally coming on to him, because at one point she basically just turns to him and, after you write this book on sex, read it.
Read it, because dude, you're a stick in the mud, and you spend all your time doing your research and very little time, you're all brain and no dick. That's the problem.
Yeah, all of his stuff taken in context, it looks very creepy because he's peeping on these kids and he's listening to them. It's like,
he's overtly, he's got like this like tape recorder. He's like listening on their conversations and like tracking them. And it's like, yeah, how did you get this past an institutional review board?
But I mean, really, he's presented as this might as well be a virgin, you know, totally clueless guy who doesn't realize that Annette Funicello wants to bang him.
I mean, I think I don't know. I read him as someone who he kind of knows in the back of his mind. I mean, he's kind of aware of it, but he's kind of lying to himself about his own, you know, sort of motivations. Like he's kind of saying like, oh no, I'm just interested in this for research, but he's also very interested in being attracted to her. And, you know, like as any person would reasonably be in that situation, you know. And that Funicello was adorable. Of course, you got Dorothy Malone standing right there and clearly wanting to fuck you. Yeah, you know, that's not a difficult decision for me.
That's a good sandwich to be in the middle of.
That's a good sandwich to be in the middle of. And let's just go ahead and get you know, a couple of these other girls. There's a dancer who is let's see, what's her name here? Candy Johnson is the dancer.
Okay, yeah.
In the closing credits, she's the one kind of dancing past the closing credits, and she's also the one early in the film who does the classic bit of, you know, she's stretching on the beach, and the surfers are, you know, crashing as they watch her. Which, that scene has to happen in all of these movies, right? So, she's the one who's we probably see the most skin on the lovely Candy there, and apparently she was a professional dancer. She retired a few years after this movie, and just kind of. She went out and had a nice life for herself, apparently. So good for that. And of course, the sort of Swedish bombshell, who is Ava, who is played by Eva Six, who apparently did 3 movies and then retired. So
yeah, I was looking into her, and I guess she escaped from. It was some sort of like, I think, regime or something she escaped from with her husband and went to Hollywood, if I recall correctly. And then she got signed on to AIP and did 3 pictures, and that was it.
Yeah, no, she was born in Hungary to a Jewish father and a Catholic mother. Dad died during the war, and her mother changed family surname to avoid detection by the Nazis. So
yeah,
what? So many films of this time basically involve like, and then they fled the Nazis. That was, you know, that's just a thing that happens. You know, when you're like, let's watch the Beach Party movie from 1963. Nazis always show up somewhere if you start digging into any of the details. But no, so you get this narrative around, you know, this scientist who's basically trying to hit on this girl, and this girl is she's looking for someone mature and kind of adult. She wants to become a wife and not just, you know, and not just be fucked, you know, which is a shame. Oh, you know, more power to her. But there is a sense in which she starts looking at this guy, at this, you know, older man. I mean, he's in his 50s at this point. You know, you look up the actor. I mean, he's actually, you know.
Doesn't look it though. He's got like that Charles Bronson thing where his body doesn't age. You know,
I kind of love. There's a lot of light comedy made out of his, you know, because of his experience, because of his science. Like he can learn to surf by doing math. You know, that sort of thing.
Forgets to carry the 2, and once he does,
to carry the 2, and then once he can carry the 2, then he's like, okay, now I can surf. And not for any amount of good it does him with impressing the guys, because they laugh at him as you know, the obvious dweeb.
He's almost coded as like with his beard, almost as like a beatnik or something like that, you know. Like he's got a kind of that shaggy beatnik beard that would be sort of passe at this point in 63, right?
Well, he's kind of this academic, because we actually do have a beatnik who is not Big Daddy, but the
Cappy in the bar.
Cappy, Corey Amsterdam. Yeah. Who there's a really interesting scene that he has with our hero here, and they kind of go back and forth. There are a couple of girls doing yoga constantly, which is a funny little gag. There's a lot of like little touches in this film that make it a lot better than it has to be. And there's some kind of sexy stuff. There's a motorcycle gang with Harvey Lembeck as Eric Von Zipper, clearly based on
Brando.
Wild Ones. Brando, clearly based on Brando. They even like name check Brando, I think, at one point, or there's like one of the names of one of the other guys is like Marlon Brandon or something like that. I might have made that up. I might have just seen it.
Yeah, I don't know. I missed that one, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
My favorite little bit of the motorcycle game is they're the rats, and then the 2 girls in the gang, they're the mice.
The mice, yeah.
Which is a funny little bit. It's just, you just see it on the back of their jackets there, their leather jackets. But.
And then like they're the most inept tough guy gang. Like, you couldn't put an actually dangerous motorcycle gang in a movie like this. So they're all totally inept. They don't present a challenge at all to anybody in this film. They're just they're basically just there. We need a little bit of plot here. We need to fill 5 minutes with something.
Right. And I mean, we demonstrate that our hero, our anthropologist, he has these martial arts skills, and he can just like touch the side of his head with his finger, and put him into like suspended animation for a couple of hours. So basically, our hero has magic fingering powers, and in fact, they do have there's a scene where Von Zipper's like, well, there's 7 of us, and he only has 2 fingers, so which is just delightful. No, and then as the story goes on, we do get there's a kind of two explicit love triangles happening. Because you've got Frankie Avalon, who frankly does not make much of an impression on me in this film at all.
He's kind of a jerk.
All the dudes, I know there are like several dudes who are like named characters, and I have no interest in.
They all look alike. The only difference is one of them has an accent, a southern accent. That's right.
It. You actually get more personality from the really dumb, really tall rat. There's one guy who's apparently he's got to be like 6'5" or something, because he towers over everybody else in the film, and he's the dumb one. And he's about the only dude without a beard of some kind who has any kind of personality in this film.
There's some people in Von Zipper's gang that would be better suited to be the leader of the gang, and they might actually be effective,
Right. But we get a couple of fight scenes, and we get 2 love triangles, because you have the one that's because Frankie Avalon's character really wants to kind of flirt with Ava, who's like kind of the hot girl in the place.
Yeah, she's the hot foreign chick.
She's the hot waitress, She's like, and at that time, like exotic and foreign was like Swedish,
Yeah, it might even be the prototypical one too. Like that you basically just see throughout all these sorts of movies from Evermore, right up to like Porky's 3 with the like Swedish exchange student or whatever.
I don't think it starts here. I think it's. I think this is just an example of it, because I think that the sort of the foreignness. Even I can imagine like a lot of that might have come in through like Bergman, and sort of the World War II era. The sort of the idea that Swedish and sex were somehow kind of I imagine you get some returning World War II veterans who just have this idea of Swedish massage being the sexy like being a hand job basically but no, you have these kind of 2 love triangles that are kind of happening, and the way that they interact. Ultimately, it just kind of gets you just kind of shrug and move on at the end. They just kind of go, "No, but I love you. Oh, but I love you," and then it's over. So there's no. It doesn't really do anything with that, but it is interesting that it kind of plays with that for a little while. And you end up with Ava ends up, I guess. She goes off with Von Zipper at the end, although probably not. She's definitely kind of hitting on him towards the kind of the 2/3 mark, but I think at the end he's already he's just the loser.
Yeah, she's shown to be more of like just a troublemaker anyway, who's just looking to. She kind of realizes that, hey, I can just bang Frankie Avalon and fuck with his relationship, and that's not going to happen. So I'll just get back at all of them and fuck with them and hang on to Eric Von Zipper for a little while, So she's just moving around from whatever guy she can find, basically.
Yeah. You hate to even like think too hard about the characters in this, because there's no real writing here. It's just kind of dumb. It's kind of fun. It's a lot like an episode of Baywatch. I'm kind of thinking like, what does this really like relate to? And it's Baywatch had to be on network TV, even though it was in syndication, so they didn't have standards and practices, so they could, Baywatch definitely is allowed to be sexier than this is. But it's the right comparison point. I think it's the right kind of thing of they can't really do nudity and they're not really doing sex, but they're going about as far as they can for a movie of this kind made during that time period. And there is some pretty funny kind of goofy stuff in it. And Dorothy Malone is really excellent. And
she's really good.
She makes out with Bob Cummings there. Well, he starts making out with her, and then she and then they just kind of go off together, and happy ending. It's over.
It's it's very light fare, but I mean, it moves along really quick. It doesn't drag for me anywhere as far as I'm concerned. Everything looks good. Even the shitty version we watched on Daily Motion, it's still very colorful and really pops. Yeah. It's got some nice energy to it.
William Asher, who directed this, is a TV director. He did a ton of TV in the 50s, and so and it looks very much like TV. I mean, honestly, you could put this up next to some of the modern Disney Channel stuff, and it looks about that. I mean, it's very, they sort of designed, it sort of creates this genre, or it creates this sort of tone that ends up just kind of being like widely influential within this kind of genre. This is after the Gidget films. From what I understand, the Gidget films are a little bit more, they kind of play up the reality of the kind of the beach bum lifestyle a little bit more than this does. I haven't seen Gidget in long enough to be able to comment on that. I mean, this is just pure fantasy. There's no, like, no one has a job or like has to eat, or, you know, there's no sense of, you know, any kind of, you know, realism in this at all. It's just kind of goofy fun, but it works at what it does, and it deservedly has this place in cinema history, but I don't know that I'm going to be revisiting it again.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of fun. Like, if you've never seen it before, like, check it out, I'd say. But I mean, it's more kind of just interesting, I think, just because it's kind of it sets a lot of the sort of prototype for these sort of movies going forward. Like, it's very influential. You can definitely see its DNA through just about everything that's a sex comedy that involves a beach.
I mean, even like the Beach Girls, which we did 2 years ago, you know, it's basically the same fucking plot, you know. It's the girl who's kind of the straight-laced one who doesn't want to get laid, and then there's a party, and you know,
except in that one, Annette Funicello shows her boobs.
Right, yeah. So, you know, it's just a thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, I found it funny, like, there are a lot of jokes around the professor's beard, and once he shaves it doesn't look like he's in his 50s.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't look all that much older than most of the cast here, who are too old to be playing teenagers in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it would look really creepy if you had actual teenagers and then like this guy who's in his 50s.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it works just based on like it's shot the way it is, and it's just sort of, you know, I mean, I think that the fact that he is so clearly innocent of kind of any overt malice just sort of allows it to, it sells it a little bit better. It is kind of an uncomfortable thing when you start thinking about what would really be going on realistically, but it's also like played with such a light touch that it's hard to really kind of blame the film for that. You know?
If his character, you see like iterations of his character in future sex comedies in the 70s and 80s, and then almost every time they're totally the creepster who's drooling all over everybody.
Right. I mean, you get that he has like the honest motives, and I mean, he's got the fact that Dorothy Malone is obviously in love with him kind of sells the.
Yeah, there must be something.
He's really not a bad guy, you know.
Yeah, because, you know, Dorothy Malone just comes off as fucking awesome in this, and it's like, well, if she sees something in him, then he must not be a creep.
Right.
Yeah.
She's so no nonsense. I don't know. Anytime Dorothy Malone is on screen, I'm just like,
oh, I love the scene where she's using the professor's equipment there, and she hears all the teenagers making out and stuff, and then she's like, at first she's like reluctant. She's like, oh, I shouldn't listen to this, but then she's like, and then just the way her, like, the looks on her face while she's listening is like really good. That's a great scene. I like that.
And she is 39 at this point. Like, even this late, she is only 39.
Looking good.
She's looking great. And, you know, but I mean, it is like, this is 7 years after the three films that we discussed last time. It's looking at this and then looking at 6 years after Written on the Wind. And, you know, she looks older there than she does here. And clearly that's performance and makeup, you know. And that's not to be critical either way. It's just to say that, like, you know, we've seen her as early as 1946 or 45 when the Big Sleep was made.
Big Sleep.
We've seen her that early, and you know, she was like in her 20s at that point, early 20s at that point. And it's nice to see, you know, kind of later on, she's I mean, she looks great. She's a great performer. She said I've seen some of her stuff in her interviews where she said, I really like playing moms. I really, you know, so coming to this stage of her career and kind of being like the slight, not being the sexy ingenue anymore and kind of being the slightly older actress, it really worked for her. And she got, I mean, in a couple of years, she's going to start her kind of big TV career, and she's going to have this starring role in Peyton Place, and it's just, I don't know, it's just a delight to see a woman like that who had a career as long as she did. She's great in this, and I think she's going to be great in everything we see. We're going to keep coming back to Dorothy Malone movies, and she's going to be awesome in all of them. I guarantee you.
I would not be surprised. Yeah, budget for this was somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. There's not an exact figure apparently, but it raked in $2.3 million alone from U.S. and Canada. So, yeah, for AIP, that's a big hit, and you can see why they made so many of these. Unfortunately, and I'm really surprised by this, there are no Blu-rays of these beach party movies, which you think the way these pop on the screen color-wise, you think these would just be right for Blu-ray, but the best you can do is MGM Midnight Movies released a DVD in 2006 as a double feature with Bikini Beach, and that's kind of your best bet for this right now, unless you want to watch it on Amazon Video.
You'd think there'd be a like a big box set of these,
right?
And maybe there are some rights issues that where it's difficult to kind of put together a box set of 7 and do the full restoration, and maybe the audience is just aged out for these.
Could be
I could see kind of like the big VHS era kind of box set where because at that point they were only 20 or 30 years old, and so you basically would have people our age who remember seeing them at the drive-in when they were kids, sort of thing. I don't know. That's I'm surprised there's not a big there's not at least some like big good looking version of this, but it's not that surprising.
Yeah, it's just the way they just basically put anything on Blu-ray and DVD these days. It's like you'd expect it, but
well, we've also kind of gotten past the media era. I mean, now everything's
true.
And so it's just like they've just got to work out the rights and just stream it now, and that's the unfortunate part is that hardly anybody's going to do like a big digital restoration just for a streaming product. So I don't know. We'll see where that goes in the next 10 or 20 years. But it's worth checking out. And a whole bunch of these beach party movies and this like stuff made in this era is on Dailymotion. Like if you kind of go and you find it, and then you can see like the little part 1 of 2, part 2 of 2 of various things of this era. So if you're a fan of this stuff, it's available now. It's readily available if you're willing to just kind of just watch it in the little box. But
Well, I looked at the heavens, they were rolling in fast. I knew I better make it, cause they just don't last. I'm surfing, swinging and surfing. Oh, the sand and the sea, the only life for me. I'm surfing, yeah, I'm surfing. I'm a dog on my board, gonna have me a ball. Caught a good ride, and that was all. I'm surfing, surfing and a surfing. Oh, the sand and the sea is the only love for me. Just surfing, yeah, just surfing. When I looked at the beach, there was nothing but chicks. Rode a breaker in, gonna get my kicks. I'm surfing, surfing and a surfing. For the sand and the sea, the only love for me. I'm surfing, yeah, I'm surfing, just surfing. Met a little blonde and asked her for a data. She said, come on, honey, you can wax your boat later. I'm surfing, surfing, surfing and a surfing. Oh, the sand and the sea, the only love for me. I'm a surfing, yeah, just surfing. Yeah, surfing, baby, just surfing. Oh, the sand and the sea. I'm surfing, just surfing, just surfing, surfing, come on, surfing, yeah, I'm surfing.
Okay, we'll move on now to Joysticks from 1983.
Joysticks. everyone's doing it. But it's not vulgar.
Kids play with their joysticks day in and day out, jerking back and forth.
Everyone's doing it. But it's not violent.
Like, where are we supposed to go?
And everyone's doing it.
We're good playing arcade. You want to play Pac-Man?
Eugene and Mommy?
It's been so long.
Joysticks.
You and I have something in common.
We both like to hang out in public bathrooms. No.
Prepare yourself. I would like you to meet Simba.
A film for people who are totally into fun.
Strip video.
You got it.
Games.
Oh, damn it!
And good times.
You're running a garbage dump in here, and I intend to do something about it. You will not go to the arcade again, right?
If I want to go to the arcade, like, I am going to go.
Just for the fun of it.
If you win,
I'll close the arcade down.
It's more fun than games. Joysticks.
I can't go on like this! Totally awesome video game!
Directed by Graydon Clark, written by 3 different writers: El Gomez, Mickey Epps, and Curtis Birch. And I mean, a movie this substantial definitely needed 3 writers.
One for each actress who appears new to the film, apparently.
Yeah, that must be it. Yeah, it must have been their dads or something.
I hope not.
Yeah, no. Joe Don Baker as Joseph Rudder. Leaf Green as Eugene Groby.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, a stupid name. Jim Greenleaf as Jonathan Andrews McDorfus. Scott McGinnis as Jefferson Bailey. John Grease as King Vidiot. Corrine Borher as Patsy Rudder. John Deal as Arnie. John Voldstad as Max. Reed Crookshanks as Coach Straight. Morgan Lofting as Mrs. Rudder. Kim Malin as Lola. And Kim G. Michael as Elva. And the synopsis for this that I pulled from IMDb says, when a top local businessman and his 2 bumbling nephews try to shut down the town's only video arcade employees and patrons fight back. And yeah, that's pretty apt too. There's even less plot in this film than there is in Beach Party. So
yeah. Significantly less plot, but significantly more incident. Like, more stuff happens, but it's really a pretty straightforward plot. It's every 10 or 15 minutes you just get a new kind of mini movie that starts, and you just kind of follow that. It reminds me a little bit of Party Animal that way.
Yeah, it's
got a little bit of that like kind of episodic structure.
It's the really dumb version of Party Animal, like the one without any sort of art behind it. But I assume the first time you watched this was a while back, because we've had this on our list for a while now.
This was one I think you referenced it at some point, and I just wanted to watch it, and I think it was right after we finished our first sex comedy series.
I think so, yeah.
And I remember watching it and really liking it, and I might have even mentioned it on the show at that point. I know I talked to you about seeing it and how much I had enjoyed it, and but it may have been either after we had stopped recording. I don't know if it ended up in an episode or not, but I did really enjoy it, and I knew this was one we were going to have to do when we finally get back to sex comedies, and then it took us 2 years to finally get back to doing movies. So I really like this. This is a lot of fun. It's a big, goofy, stupid movie. One thing I didn't mention about Beach Party is it does kind of represent this sort of era of the like sort of innocent, sort of beach teenager movies, and this definitely represents a very particular moment in pop culture history with the arcade video game in its ascendance. 1983, this film was made. This is kind of the beginning of the end. Like, this is the peak, or some people say 81, 82 is really the peak. Like Pac-Man Fever, I think, is 82. But this was a massive pop culture phenomenon that was happening with these arcade cabinets, and basically in by 85, 86, the Nintendo, the original Nintendo Entertainment System, basically just killed everything. It just killed the whole market. And it just kind of goes downhill, and it kind of has a couple of resurgences in the 90s, but basically that's what happened. So we are kind of getting this like the van, because the van kind of encapsulates that Southern California van culture of the late 70s, and it's kind of this thing that existed for a couple of years and then disappeared.
Yeah, There's a van in this movie that would fit right into the van.
There is a van in this movie. I mean, it's kind of an obvious gag just because there is. I mean, literally like two characters from the van practically just show up in this movie for one little goofy scene with some nudity, and it's glorious. No, this is a lot of fun. It's big, it's dumb, it's very, very broad. There's no particular story at all, but there's some really fun performances. I like how it's playing with its own conventions. I mean, this isn't so much a sex comedy as it's a comedy about sex comedies. I mean, it's almost like the Airplane of sex comedies in a way. Because it's really broad. It's kind of playing with these tropes. Like, I mean, at one point, King Vidiot, it was like, we got to get some wheels. Like, he's always like at one point he throws a bicycle, like a little child's bicycle, because he wants wheels so badly. Yeah. And when he finally gets Joe Don Baker's character to buy him some fucking wheels, and then they get the little tiny little tiny bikes, and he's just riding around like, look at how badass I am now. And you got to think, like, they know exactly how ridiculous all this is, right?
Yeah, I mean, just on its face, this entire film is just one big dick jacking off joke too. Like, everything in this is like centered around just double entendres about moving your joystick, playing with your joystick. It's all like dick and jacking off jokes, and in fact, like, this movie kind of front loads the nudity and stuff. Like, it's kind of in the first 20, 30 minutes.
There are really only four. I think there are only four actresses who do nudity at all in this, and one of them was in the van. Who I actually forgot until you mentioned it, and I'm like, oh right, there was nudity in that scene as well. Towards the end, you get this basically softcore Skinamax before Skinamax was a thing sequence with the ex-girlfriend of our Jefferson Bailey, who is just the douchiest looking guy ever. Right?
He's supposed to be the hero, but he comes off as like the bad guy in every other one of these movies, like the douche jock frat boy guy.
He's just too damn Aryan to really be a good guy in one of these, but he is, and he's kind of a bully, but he's kind of a kind-hearted bully, so it's kind of whatever,
Yeah, I'll get more into that lately.
So his girlfriend, so you get like a little sex scene with them, this fairly raunchy, kind of, there's full nudity in it.
Kind of on the level of the sex scenes, or at least the one sex scene or actually there's two of them in Hot Dog the movie, kind of the same thing.
Yeah, like that same. It feels almost like a throwback and to the 70s a little bit. Just kind of the way that's edited, a little bit more of an Emmanuel thing. But the other two, you've got these two actresses who show up at the very beginning of the film.
Yep.
They take out their tops. They go through the film. They have like, I think 3 or 4 like full nude scenes, or at least topless scenes. And it's kind of like, you do kind of feel like, well, we've got these two actresses and we paid them to do nudity and they're okay with doing it, so we'll just kind of keep bringing them back. That's the strategy. And it does kind of sell this immediately with this sort of like where they're hitting on the dweeb. I don't know, it seems really mean. It seems like this really like kind of aggressive, like stupid thing, because they're supposed to, we're in the sorority, and yet none of this makes any sense. Like,
no.
Let's not think about it too hard. It's supposed to be a sorority initiation, but I get the feeling they're just doing it as a prank, just because they're just fun with it.
They're just naughty girls, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like
naughty girls, they're very naughty girls. They spend all their time in the arcade, man. Come on.
I mean, and these two girls, Kim G. Michael or Mitchell, whichever it is, this is the only role she ever did. Kim Malin went on to do a bunch of stuff. She was a Playboy playmate. She was the girl who gets her clothes sucked off and sucked up into a chimney in Weird Science.
Nice.
The piano playing girl, if you remember that sequence.
Yeah, I do very much remember.
Yeah, that was a big sequence to see in my youth. Yeah. But they pretty much bring the goods for the first half of the film. Like again, like there is a little bit of nudity peppered through later, but for the most part, they front load it all. And then the rest of the movie is mostly how many dick and fart jokes can we get in?
Yeah. mostly at the what's his name, McMurty or something like that. McDorfus. How many fart sequences does he have in this film?
Oh my god!
He spends more time farting than he spends talking, practically.
Yeah, pretty much. He's just made to
he
be
even
like...
he even does the one leg up aggressive, gotta tilt and turn my ass towards the microphone to make sure it really gets, a full blast right there.
And
everything is very overly signaled in this film, and it's that level of ridiculousness that sort of sells me on, like, this is intentional. Like they're not. This is overtly meant to be like just silly.
When you first see McDorf, he's playing on one of the video games. And he's got food everywhere, popcorn all over the cabinet, on the floor, just all kinds of shit everywhere. And Eugene, who's just been hired to this place, thinks he's just like some undesirable and needs to be kicked out. So he tries to kick him out of the to the place. And it's like, it's kind of weird because this movie shifts between main characters. Sometimes I feel like sometimes it feels like it's supposed to be Eugene's movie and the whole goal will be eventually get Eugene laid. But no, then it switches to Jim Greenleaf, who isn't very likable, and then it switches to like McDorfus and his fucking hijinks. So there's like no focus at all.
Yeah, there's no real narrative cohesion here in terms of there's no point to most of this. I mean, it's really just sort of Joe Don Baker is the only character who really gets a through line in that, and he's kind of the villain, and he's just trying to get the video arcade shut down. Yeah. You got our good buddy here, King Vidiot, John Gariz, I think is his name.
Yep.
Who is still acting. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's got like 140 credits on IMDb, and has a pivotal role in Real Genius, which is the thing I know him from.
And I think most people these days would know him as the uncle in Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really interesting in this. Like, he's essentially just an update on Eric Von Zipper. It's like it's just a punk rock version of that. And his entire gang are all girls.
And of course, but it's also, he's sort of likable in that way. Like, you kind of get the sense that, like, this whole antagonism that he has with, the preppy kid who owns the place or whose grandfather or whatever,
Yeah.
You kind of get the sense that the only, the real thing that's going on there is more just sort of a personality conflict. Like they're just sort of having fun. You never get the sense that there's a real ill will.
No, he's not malicious. I'd argue that Jim Greenleaf is much more malicious. Not Jim Greenleaf. Jefferson Bailey, yeah. I'd argue he's actually kind of just a fucking dick. I was on Vidiot's side the whole time, honestly. He's because Vidiot's just kind of he's kind of crazy, and he's just kind of being used by everybody who comes into contact with him.
Right. I mean, he doesn't seem all that bright, but he seems like he's got a purpose, he's got a mission, and he's got 4 girls who do Pac-Man dances around him, and that's a man who's got his life together. Is what I'm saying. Certainly more than like preppy dude is like, my dad owns this place, so I'm the manager now. It's good. Get over yourself.
Let's talk about this asshole for a second too, because
can we talk about his big psychological trauma?
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay, let's do so.
So, we get to the backstory eventually of this dickhead, and it all centers around
all through the film. He's like, I don't play these games.
It all centers around to a point where he's forced to play this game to save the fucking arcade, and so we flash back to the softcore sex scene with his long lost girlfriend, and we discover that they got caught by her dad, and her dad slapped her around and then left town with her, and he hasn't seen her since. And every time he looks into an arcade cabinet, he goes right back to that night where that traumatic thing happened. Why the fuck are you in an arcade? Why are you working in it? You would be nowhere near a fucking arcade if that was that bad for you.
It's like, I can't look, like, he can be around them, but he can't look into the cabinet, apparently, and he just sees like the angry father. I mean, I'm just later on, he's kind of like doing the playing the video game with the giant joystick, and they're doing the battle, and I kept thinking of if you remember Munich, the Steven Spielberg Munich, where our lead in that, he, after he does all of his like terrorist activities in defense of Israel, etc., he it's like fucking his wife, and they like can't get it up, and you get like the slow motion shots on his face. I just imagined that the entire time, and I'm like, Joysticks actually kind of does this better than Steven Spielberg did it, 23 years later with significantly more money and better actors. So I can't blame it too hard, but it's almost like they don't play it up enough. I mean, this is definitely a script that needed it could use some polishing. Let's just
a little bit,
because like you could do kind of a really overt, fun version of this idea where it's not where it's like, again, like Airplane, I have a drinking problem, or it could be, I don't play these games, and then like you do the close up and you get a sting, and like you could definitely play this up more, but it just seems like kind of a rush job, and they're not really kind of doing too much with it. But lots of goofy fun. I do want to bring up one actress who was my favorite actress in the film, and this is Patsy Rutter, the Sister Parker's daughter.
Yeah,
Corinne Bower, and I know her as Veronica Mars's mom. She's in, and she's just delightful. She's just got that, well, come on, daddy. Oh, daddy, I'm going to play the video games. And she's like the spoiled rich girl. She's so much fun.
I'm going to split with you on that to a certain degree, because she has to be the most stereotypically annoying Valley girl ever. She puts it on, my God, 100 times worse than you could ever see in any other movie. Like she is just so fucking into that character. It's nuts.
But the fact that she's way into it sells it for me. I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm on board. I'm on board with you playing this character because you're obviously having fun. And I think it also, like, the fact that it's super exaggerated is the sort of thing that the film is about. The whole film is played to that peak level. So if you find the accent annoying, or you find the, just the kind of intonation annoying, I sort of get that. But she's having so much fun, and I just love some of her like little asides, like the little glances she gives. It's almost like they're just little like momentary acting choices where I'm just like, well, this is just I just fall in love. I'm just
I have mixed feelings because, and I eventually turned around on her because I ended up feeling sorry for her character because, okay, so first of all, she's supposed to be 16. They say in the movie she's 16, yet she's hanging out trying to fuck this Jeff guy, and she's hanging out with all these people who are constantly bumping and grinding on these machines and getting nude. So, her dad's actually right about, I probably want to keep her out of this place,
it's not quite as wholesome as maybe they're like to pretend it is. They're not doing computer science lectures here at the arcade, but neither is there naked mud wrestling. So
yeah, and also it's like there's the scene where she's at the pool at her house, and Joe Don Baker's got his two fucking dumbass nephews there with him,
who are a lot of fun as well.
They are fun, but did you sort of pick up the vibe that they wanted to fuck their cousin? Because they're glaring at her in that scene.
I mean, that seems like something that's probably just based on the fact that just look at her. Like that might be just the actors not quite being good enough to portray being cousins at that moment. Because
I can't say I blame them. Because she's really cute, but I end up feeling sorry for her because at the end she just gets dropped and dumped, and they don't pair her up with anybody else. This would have been the perfect opportunity for Eugene to find to find a love interest, instead of just getting fucked.
He ends up with Joe John Baker's wife, which is there's some real Shakespearean drama happening, like either end of this movie in terms of like the family dynamics, right?
She's the Joe John Baker's wife is the sort of stereotypical abused wife, or basically
neglected wife, I would say.
Neglected wife, who is popping pills and is a secret nymphomaniac.
Not so secret, only secret to Joe Don Baker apparently, and who apparently has a gas problem because there is the moment where that guy lays the big one, and it's like, oh, come on. I thought you took care of that, and he keeps spray, like air spray next to that's a weird scene too, because it starts out super creepy because Dorfus and Eugene, they try to break into Joe Don Baker's house to get some dirt on him to basically blackmail him. They end up in the bedroom with her, and she's passed out on her pills. Basically, she's barely conscious. And McDorfus is like, "This is your chance, Eugene. You can jump on her and bang her." And he's like, and to Eugene's credit, he's like, "No, I don't want to do that." So he's not a rapist. But then she And then she, like, you know, just starts, like, feeling him up, and is, you know, and then Joe Don Baker gets into bed, and he doesn't even notice that this is happening, and that's how just completely oblivious, you know, Joe Don Baker is.
I suspect that was a little bit of reality bleeding into the picture, because I'm sure Joe Don Baker was, I don't know why I'm here. I'm just not going to pay attention. I'm going to read my lines, and I'm just going to leave.
He's good in this. I mean, but he's clearly he's sleepwalking through it just a little bit, but I mean, he's fine. No, but you're right. You're right that I feel like they could have had Patsy get a little action at the end.
I felt sorry for her, because I mean, all they had to do is say she was 18, and then you know, give her somebody to bone at the end. Like, the poor girl, she's expecting to go away with Jeff, and then Jeff's lost girlfriend,
who we didn't even find out about until like 3 minutes before, basically. You know,
she miraculously shows up with Grandpa, who was off screen this whole time in the hospital, apparently, and he comes up with his nurse that he's constantly feeling up.
Yeah, apparently he's getting it on with the nurse, and you know, so yeah, no, it would be nice to have her kind of be paired off with somebody decent. And you're right, Eugene is probably the person that should be with, because you certainly don't want to hook her up with McDorfus there.
Yeah,
I do think that there's a logic to her becoming one of the Vidiots. I think I could see that, because she clearly loves the arcade, and she's got that rebellious streak. I could sort of see like that logic going on, and she could maybe she could be King Vidiot's girl.
Yeah.
That would be kind of a logical end, but
although King Vidiot seems more enthused with really ugly women who look like dudes.
Got some repressed issues. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm not, no judgment on my part with that.
No.
You know, hey, do your thing, but it does seem like he's maybe, you know, that's a man who wears a lot of eyeliner.
Oh my God! I'm not surprised. Like, if he wasn't already having a receding hairline, I would be like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the movie that just basically killed his hair, because all that shit he's got in his hair. Holy fuck, man!
It's great.
I like the just a minor little thing. I like the Pac-Man wipes that they do.
Yeah. No, those are fun. There's a lot of little fun little bits like that. You know, lots of little design. You know, it's like it's better than it has to be, and that's always something that you appreciate in a film like this. You know, even though the story makes no sense and the actors are kind of wishy-washy here and there, and you know, a lot of the narrative is just kind of nowhere. But there's a lot of like fun little details kind of packed into the corners, and sometimes it's a performance, sometimes it's just kind of a gag, and sometimes it's you know, the little Pac-Man wipes. I like the Pac-Man wipes. I like McDorfus playing the giant joystick. And you know, I like the bit where he just kind of sits there and eats his chili dog while, you know, he loses two of his men, and then when he gets back in there, he's literally just like using his elbow, and he starts like tonguing the button and that sort of thing. And I love that the rest of the like crowd just kind of accepts him as one of their own, like just like even though like fat and disgusting, and you know, clearly
they're obviously clearly acclimated to his farting, because he's just doing it in front of them all the time, and they're barely wincing.
Look at that arcade. Look at how like cheap that arcade really looks in terms of. I mean, they've got some nice production design, you know, with the battle, like the station, that sort of thing. But this is a shitty little snack bar with like a bunch of console machines that's clearly like crammed into, you know, some poorly ventilated warehouse. And if McDorfus is there as often as he seems, and he's farting as much as it seems, that's basically a gas attack. I mean, there's just mustard gas happening in that place all the time. Like, everybody's just, you know, like when they take like, you know, military recruits and they put them into the tear gas room, you know, and they just gotta, that's just like everybody in that place is just kind of acclimated to it, you know. And that's really, I mean, Joe Don Baker shows up, and I mean his immediate response should not be, you know, like, oh, these damn kids that are video games. Is like, there's gas warfare happening.
You know, why does this arcade smell like shit? Well, it's basically. Also, the only other thing I really want to mention that I did like the obligatory courtroom scene, and like basically it's a town council voting on whether they keep the arcade or not. They have the two different versions of the story, and they go those little vignettes. And You got the S&M orgy that Joe Don Baker's basically describing, where everyone's literally humping the consoles and stuff like that. And then you have the other one where everyone's dressed in white, everyone's polite to each other. One woman goes, "Eugene, my breast brushed your arm." "Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it." And then McDorfus is talking to the Pope.
There's literally a character credited as the Pope in this film. No, I really love those two little vignettes. It's one of the most fun little bits of the film. I alluded to it earlier, but yeah, no, the S&M Club version of the arcade is definitely one of those. This is what happens at that arcade after dark, you know?
Yeah, I wish this happened in my arcade. I never saw any of this. I barely saw a girl in my arcade, let alone this shit.
You know, I'll bet there is some arcade where, like, I mean, a lot of the, like, you know, kink community and stuff, I mean, they basically just, like, meet up wherever somebody has, like, a space for them. I would not be surprised if one of these arcades is owned by some 50-year-old nerdy kinky guy, and he, like, rents it out, and, you know, he kind of lets them use the space after hours, you know, as like, the kink club, and I would love to see that. That would be so much fun. Yeah. To show up at a kink club that's also, like, a classic arcade.
Yeah, so, you know, do a little... Do a little 69 or something, and then get whipped a couple times, and then play fucking Galaga or Galaga.
Play Galaga, yeah. No, it's great. It's great. What do you prefer? It's No, but those two are a lot of fun. Again, I like this movie overall. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Don't go into it expecting a whole lot. There's no rape in it, and that's always something positive that we think of when we see these films these days. And some good nudity too. I mean, you know, I hate to judge it on that, but there is the strip arcade game that they play in the back room. There is a lot of fun. I mean, it's just so.
Oh yeah, you know. Both of them are excellent, and Kim Malin's one of the rare blondes I really like too. She made an impression on me in my youth, so it sort of stuck with me.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
We forgot the great cameo from Beach Party.
Oh, yeah. Jesus, and I forgot to mention. Yeah, Vincent Price, by the way, in Beach Party, alluding to his role in the AIP made Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah, and he's making like a little gag on it. Apparently they played it as a double bill or something, and I can't imagine how that... I mean, that's astonishing.
That's weird. That's weird. That's really weird.
Anyway, move on with the DVD info. I think we're done with unfortunately.
Yeah, but Joysticks is fun. It's actually a lot more fun than you would probably think. You probably just think it's kind of a gimmick film, but it plays its gimmick right to the fucking hilt. So it works that way.
It's again one of those way better than you think it is, just based on the description. And as long as you don't go in expecting much of a story, I think you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, budget was $300,000, and the box office in the USA alone was $3.9 million. So holy shit, that's. If that's the correct numbers.
Yeah, I mean, with that kind of numbers, I'm surprised they never made a sequel.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd think, you know, hey, let's make like a little series of these, but then maybe by the time they kind of got to, let's make it with the Joysticks, and it's like, well, the craze is over.
Yeah, the 83 is getting a little bit late into the sort of big sex comedy boom anyway, but DVD info, Scorpion. There was actually some unofficial releases of this on DVD beforehand that ended up not either got pulled or just didn't get released because of rights issues. But Scorpion releasing in 2012 did a DVD release, and in 2015 a 30th anniversary Blu-ray as well. Although it's more than 30 years, but I think it's just
32nd anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah, but
because they spent 2 years restoring this masterpiece to Criterion standard, you know.
You can see it on YouTube because, quite frankly, if you're trying to get this on DVD, good luck. There was, I think, only 1,000 copies made of the Blu-ray alone, so it's going for big money on fucking eBay right now.
Fun times.
Yeah,
and it's good, but it's not worth the $100 or whatever they're going for.
No, I mean, unless you're like a dedicated collector of 80s sex comedies or something like that, you really have to have it. Otherwise, just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's also on Rare List, just where I got my copy. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. So not sure what we're going to be doing next episode, but Daniel and I will figure that out. I was kind of thinking Screwballs and something you might want to suggest. Pair them together.
We had a Anne Margaret picture that I was going to do called The Swinger from from the early 60s anyway.
Okay.
And it's kind of fits into that kind of in that same era that she was doing Kitten with a Whip and Rebus.
Sounds like a
couple years later, but also just kind of a little fun little sexy comedy romp where she has to pretend to be a swinger, but in reality she's a little bit more straight-laced. It's kind of the plot summary that I got. And it's 66, I think, is the year it's made. So it's kind of in that, I think it looks like a lot of fun.
I think we got a winner. So next episode's going to be The Swinger and Screwballs.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll just pair the 60s and the 80s together. That's going to be...
although we do have a planned final episode for this little sex comedy series, this little stint of it, where we're going to be doing Carnal Knowledge and Viva Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Kit Power and maybe even someone else in our usual little crew. We'll see.
Well, we'll see, yeah.
Yeah. But Daniel, tell people where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me on Twitter at Daniel Lee Harper, and everything I do goes up there. And I have kind of everything, Wrong with Authority, wrongwithauthority.blogspot.com, and that is a podcast about movies about history and the history they're about. We have just done a couple of the Consider the Reagan kind of sub-thread. We've recorded a couple of episodes that have not been released yet, but we do have a Raiders of the Lost Ark commentary coming up whenever we get around to editing it, and a Die Hard commentary, both of which are a lot of fun. So, check that out when it shows up.
Yeah, awesome. And TMBDOS.podbean.com is our website where you can find all of our links to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our Facebook group. And, of course, again, join our Facebook group because that's the best way to get in touch with us. And until then, thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Daniel. We'll be back when we're back, hopefully next week, I believe. So there we go.
So, cheers.
Links to our Apple Podcast site, YouTube, and our Facebook group, as well as other websites and podcasts of similar interest. Please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you, drive-through, filthy, slimy